I stopped working about 6 weeks ago, just before my 61st birthday. My husband, Mark, stepped away from his job with the fire department about a month after that. We celebrated our new chapter by purchasing a used 24-foot motorhome. The plan was simple: aim it toward the Cascade Range and finally learn what slowing down truly felt like. Gifford Pinchot National Forest seemed like the perfect place to begin. Plenty of dispersed campsites, crisp summer weather, and the promise of Tuck Lake reflecting Mount Adams like glass. We left Highway 12 and merged onto Forest Road 25 late Tuesday morning, confident this stretch of wilderness would be a solid start to our unplanned adventure. Mark took the wheel while I kept an eye on the elevation climbing past 3,000 feet. Cell reception flickered in and out but never fully disappeared. Aside from one logging truck and an old silver Chevy pickup heading north, the road was quiet. Douglas fir and cedar trees lined both sides, tall enough to block the sky, until a tight curve gave us a stunning view of Mount Adams' snow-covered peak through the windshield. I took a photo even though we both assumed we'd come across better angles later. By mid-afternoon, we bumped across a narrow bridge over Taku Creek and saw a small clearing roughly 30 yards off the road. A weathered wooden post indicated it was a legal 14-day site. Mark leveled the motorhome while I climbed down to gather water. It trickled through light gray gravel, and the air held the scent of damp needles and distant campfire smoke. We positioned our chairs facing west, poured ourselves small glasses of bourbon, and toasted the peace. That evening, a distant rumble reminded me these mountains are alive in a very real sense. Small rockfalls are normal near Road 25 when the temperature dips. We heard one thump, then another, somewhere uphill, but nothing close enough to raise alarm. As dusk fell, Mark cooked the trout we had picked up in Randall earlier. The campfire ring glowed softly, and the rain came lightly, tapping the fiberglass roof as we drifted to sleep. The next day felt like everything retirement should be. We paddled inflatable kayaks across the lake's dark waters, counted just a few other visitors, and listened to a woodpecker in the trees beyond the shoreline. My phone still held 2 bars, enough to send our daughter in Seattle a photo and let her know we weren't entirely cut off. Around 7 p.m., the same silver truck from the day before pulled into our clearing. Its headlights swept across the motorhome, the tires crunching over gravel. The engine cut, but the lights stayed on, casting bright shadows around the fire pit where Mark was flipping foil-wrapped veggies. A man stepped out, mid-40s to early 50s, slim build, muddy Carhartt jacket, and a green cap with a Forest Service logo stitched in white. No district name visible. He greeted us by name, though we had never introduced ourselves. "Slide took out the blacktop at mile 23, he said, nodding north. "Whole lane's gone. You won't get that thing out the way you came." Mark asked if the county had been notified. The man shook his head and handed us a folded printout. Heavy arrows marked a route starting on a spur labeled NF 2550 and ending at a junction he said would reconnect us to State Route 125 near Swift Reservoir. It struck me as odd there were no closure signs, but the man's certainty left no room for argument. He returned to his truck, waved once, and drove off, his taillights disappearing behind thick fir branches. We packed up at first light, with a mist still clinging to the trees. Wanting to confirm the slide, we cautiously drove to mile 23. Sure enough, the pavement was torn clean away, like a wedge had been bitten from the earth. A single bright orange detour arrow pointed us down NF 2550. I opened a topo map on my tablet, but the spur wasn't listed. No side roads either. Yet the gravel was freshly graded, and we didn't feel like waiting days for a road crew. Mark inched the motorhome ahead. We drove for about 10 slow minutes, gravel crunching beneath us. The trees closed in, trunks almost touching the road. At a T-junction with no signs, Mark stopped. The odometer read 3 miles since the slide, but the forest around us looked unchanged. I stepped out to stretch and noticed something that made my skin crawl. 2 fresh tire ruts stopped abruptly behind us. 20 yards back, the road we had just driven was gone, replaced by a wall of earth and shredded roots as if bulldozed away. Back inside, Mark tried reversing. The wheels spun, kicking up fine, cold dust. The GPS unit on the dash said, We were half a mile east of where we should have been, floating in a gray void labeled unknown. We had no choice but to move forward. A quarter mile later, we passed a faded trailhead sign. A small pull-off held 2 tents on soggy ground. It looked like someone was camping. Zipper doors open, cookware stacked beside a fire ring, but no one responded when we called out. Nearby, a Subaru Outback sat with its passenger door ajar and its dash cam blinking. I reached inside and hit playback. The grainy video showed a campsite at night. Headlights swept across the view. There was a sudden shout, then the camera tumbled sideways. That was the final frame. Mark said we should leave immediately. I agreed. We marked the junction with orange tape and chose the left fork, guessing it might lead us toward Highway 99. The forest grew darker as the canopy thickened, and even at midday, it felt like twilight. In the mirror, I saw our orange tape fluttering behind us. Just 15 minutes after we tied it, another fork appeared. One road led downhill across a flat, ash-colored area. The other climbed uphill. Mark turned uphill. The road leveled off into the same fork we had left. The same ash soil, the same tire marks. Our orange tape swayed next to us. Night came. The generator stuttered and died. The lights dimmed. Cold seeped in. Mark tried the hazards, but nothing lit up. That's when the headlights appeared in the rear view. White beams pierced the mist. The silver truck rolled forward slowly. The cab glowed, but no one was inside. It stopped inches from our bumper. Mud smears on the tailgate spelled 2 words, "Follow me." Mark looked at me. I turned the key. The engine started on the second try. The truck moved without a driver. We followed. It led us deeper into Gifford Pinchot, where maps meant nothing and roads seemed to shift. I locked my eyes on the taillights. We drove nearly an hour before it turned between 2 firs and vanished. When we reached the same spot, there was no turnoff, just thick trees and a ravine. We stopped at a clearing. The same tents, same Subaru. My tape fluttered from the tree. We were back again. We tried to leave, turned around, drove on, but we always ended up at the same spot. Each direction fed us back to the same loop. Just after midnight, the silver truck returned. It idled behind us. Empty cab. The message on the tailgate had changed. Last chance. Our options were gone. Staying meant freezing in the RV. Following the truck meant risking the unknown. We chose something else. We packed emergency bags, water, food, filter, signal mirror. Mark grabbed our satellite phone, low on battery. We left a note on the table with the time and date, locked the RV, and stepped into the woods. The air smelled like sulfur. A narrow game trail climbed behind the campsite. We hiked silently. 10 minutes later, the trees opened. Gray pumice soil spread ahead. Mount St. Helens loomed in the distance, its crater rim catching early light. We saw no people, but tire tracks circled near Windy Ridge. Proof of others. Navigation devices failed again. Compass spun. GPS pulsed. Mark put them away. We followed the oldest rule: go downhill toward water. Smith Creek lay in the valley. It would lead to trails. Travel across the blast zone was hard. Every step sank into ash. Fallen trees forced detours. The silence pressed in. After 3 hours, we saw fireweed and alder. Forest again. Then the sound of a chainsaw. We followed it. Eventually, we saw workers, 6-person trail crew in hard hats. They paused as we emerged. We told them our story. The leader, Ranger Hadley, radioed headquarters. No record of a slide. No Chevy pickup on district rosters. They insisted we leave with them. The walk to the trailhead took over an hour. Once there, our phones reconnected. The satellite phone locked on. Whatever held us in the loop vanished past the last warning sign. A deputy drove us to Trout Lake. We gave statements. The search team went back to find the RV. They found the orange tape, but no slide, no Subaru, no tents, no truck. Our RV was there. Batteries full. Generator fine. The note we left still there, but the paper was dry. The dash cam memory card I copied had corrupted. Only one clip survived. A 10-second video of us sleeping inside the RV, filmed from above the windshield. No timestamp. I never got why Aaron always picked those off-the-grid spots he found on random websites. Hidden places we knew almost nothing about. Maybe that was what connected us, me, Aaron, and Mason. We all had our own version of thrill-seeking. Aaron was hooked on flying his drone, always chasing those perfect shots for his video channel. Mason was deep into geology, constantly chasing fossils and strange rocks. I was behind the lens, always chasing the clearest views of the night sky. The plan was simple: head west, rent a camper van, and disappear for a few days under some of the darkest skies we could find. We settled on an old timber clearing above Lake Sylvan in the Black Hills National Forest, South Dakota. It was barely mentioned in old topographic guides and almost forgotten on outdated hiking message boards. We got there late Friday. The road to the site was brutal. Thick underbrush scraped the RV. The potholes jostled us like we were in a washing machine, and half-collapsed turns threatened to send us rolling downhill. Took forever, but we made it. The clearing was oddly ideal at first. Flat ground, wide view of the lake far below, and no one else in sight. Aaron parked next to a rusted-out loader buried halfway in tall weeds. I stepped out, soaking in the silence. But it wasn't peaceful. It was thick, heavy, like the air was holding itself back. We got to work. Mason disappeared into the woods to scout for rock formations. Aaron set up his drone. I brought out the camera telescope tripod. The sky promised a perfect night for long exposure shots. We slipped into our usual rhythm. Night fell like ink spilled over the hills, and stars lit up the sky like shattered glass. Still, something felt off, like a tickle at the back of my neck I couldn't shake. "Do you hear anything?" Aaron asked suddenly, breaking my focus. "What? Exactly. Nothing. Not even insects. Not a bird. It's like we're sealed in." Mason came back, brushing dirt off. "Found weird droppings," he muttered. "Big. Shapes wrong. Not deer. Definitely not bear." I tried to laugh it off, but my voice faltered. Aaron launched the drone, and we watched the ghostly shapes of trees flicker on the screen in grayscale. The infrared camera swept the edge of the forest. "Looks clean," he said. We made dinner, canned chili on the stove, waited for the stars to fully show. By midnight, I was capturing faint light from a nebula. Mason was sketching out rock samples. Aaron scrolled through drone clips. I let myself doze off after 2 a.m., head filled with silent spirals of galaxies. Morning broke, and everything came undone. Aaron shook me awake, voice tight. "You gotta see this." We huddled around his laptop. A drone snapshot from the evening before. The forest, trees, brush, shadows. "Look closer," Aaron said. There he was, a tall man half hidden behind a tree. Camo outfit, not moving, not waving, just watching. His face hidden by branches and shadow. But it was clear he was looking right at where we were unloading gear. "He wasn't there last night," Aaron said. "I checked all the footage." "Hunter," Mason offered weakly. Aaron shook his head and clicked through the frames. The man never moved. Not a blink. He might as well have been a statue. But he was there, just inside the tree line, about 40 feet away, close enough to hear us talk, close enough to walk in. The RV suddenly felt fragile, just metal and fiberglass between us and whoever that was. Mason jumped up, mumbling something about clearing his head. We stepped outside together, pretending we weren't scared, scanning the trees. But we knew he was still out there. The whole afternoon dragged by in silence. The woods stayed eerily quiet. We busied ourselves just to avoid thinking about it. Mason, ever practical, insisted we stay another night. "Too dangerous hiking back after dark," he reasoned. Aaron nodded slowly and set up motion sensor floodlights around the clearing. While they worked, I climbed a ridge nearby, hoping for a signal. The short hike through dense brush led to the top, but still nothing. No bars, just a mossy ring of stones neatly arranged. The circle was too clean, too deliberate. I bent down. The moss covering the stones was untouched.
No footprints, no scuffs,
No signs of anyone walking here, just me. Back at camp, Mason sharpened his hatchet. Aaron messed with the drone. No one said a word. Dread weighed heavy. Night came fast. Stars overhead. Floodlights silent. Then, at 10:32 p.m., one of them clicked on. We all rushed out. Bright light cut through the trees. But there was nothing there. 40 minutes later, another one lit up behind the RV. Again, nothing. No prints. No broken branches. This continued through the night. Random lights, always drawing us out. By 3 a.m., we were exhausted. Fear gave way to fatigue. Aaron collapsed onto his bunk. Mason sat silently, staring into the dark. Just after 4, a knock hit the RV. Not wind, not a tree limb. A knock, deliberate. We all jumped. I cracked the door open, flashlight in hand. The cooler was gone. "Guys," I whispered. "The cooler." We stepped out. There it was, 20 feet away, upright. Around it, everything from inside had been laid out in a spiral. Soda cans, wrapped food, utensils, all in perfect lines. Labels facing up. Unmoved, Mason shook his head. "This isn't just a prank." Then Aaron's drone powered up. We had forgotten he set it to launch at dawn. It lifted, slowly climbing. "Oh God," Aaron muttered, staring at the screen. A figure stood on top of the RV. Camouflaged, perfectly still, head bowed, face hidden under the brim of a wide hat. The camera distorted, then went dead. We turned. The roof was empty, but wedged into the window screen, level with our eyes, was a tuft of animal fur, tied neatly with string. Like a charm, Aaron gently pulled it free, hands trembling. We were being watched. This wasn't some prank. This was calculated. At sunrise, we broke down camp fast. Panic had settled deep in our bones. Every snap of a twig had us flinching. Mason stood guard, hatchet in hand. We threw our gear in without care, just wanting out. Half a mile down, the RV jolted violently. We skidded to a stop. Both rear tires had been slashed. Deep, clean cuts. Deliberate. Aaron slumped. Mason stared, speechless. We had to hike out. Visitor centers got to be reachable, I said, though I wasn't sure. Mason nodded. "I'll stay with the RV. You two go. If anything happens, I'll handle it." His eyes were fierce, determined. Aaron and I packed light. Flashlights, bear spray, extra batteries. We set off. The trail was rough. Loose stone, overgrown brush. Every step felt slower. My legs shook. Then came the markers. A wooden stake with a 6. Then another marked 5. 4. We were being counted. Down. Aaron froze. "They're marking something." "Marking what?" I asked. He didn't answer. We moved faster. Finally, the brush cleared. A small public area. Lake Sylvan. A lone kayaker by his car looked up. "You guys all right?"
No, Aaron replied.
RV's up the slope. Friends still there. The kayaker listened, growing grim. He had a satellite phone. Called for help. Rangers arrived within the hour. The hike back was silent. Reaching the clearing, I knew. Jace was gone. The RV door was open. Windows too. Screens slashed. Inside, empty. A monitor flickered. The drone's footage. A loop. Jace, sitting. Door behind him opens. He turns. Smiles. Cut to static. A ranger tapped my shoulder. Behind me, on the wood cabinet, were words carved in shaky letters. Asterisk, he waits at eye level. Don't look up. Asterisk. Weeks later, back home in Wisconsin, I got a call. Aaron had found something. The drone had backed up one final clip. The man stood on the RV roof still, camouflaged, face hidden. He raised one hand, waved. The drone tilted, catching the treeline. Dozens of figures, camouflaged, still, watching. I stared at the screen, and I remembered that last smile. It wasn't fear. It was understanding, acceptance. And now, every night, I look at the woods behind my home, unable to shake the feeling. We were never alone. We aren't now either. When I was growing up in Clearwood, Georgia, not far from Blue Ridge National Forest, people would often talk about strange happenings in the woods. Grown-ups would bring it up now and then at neighborhood barbecues or while having breakfast at the diner on Sunday mornings. They'd mention weird sounds, strange glows floating through the trees, and descriptions of animals nobody could name. Like most kids my age, I just laughed it off. When you live near the hills and deep woods, those kinds of tales were common. Just something to make quiet life seem more exciting. By the time I was 18, I had gotten really into taking pictures. For my final school project that year, I decided to focus on the wilderness near Blue Ridge, especially during the colder months. It was perfect. Empty trails, cloudy skies, and ice covering the edges of streams and twigs. There was something quietly beautiful about it, a kind of loneliness that came through the camera lens. But the same stillness that made it lovely also made me feel exposed. Everything seemed bare, and that included me. One cold afternoon in February, my mom dropped me off at the Hollow Creek Trail entrance. I knew the place well. It was somewhere I had taken many pictures before. I had my camera strapped around my neck, bouncing against my chest as I waved goodbye and watched her pull off the road. She stayed nearby, listening to the radio, relaxed knowing I wouldn't be far. I walked alone down the dirt trail, leaves crunching lightly under my shoes. Without my glasses, the trees and water ahead looked blurry, like a dream. I had just started wearing glasses because my vision had gotten worse, but I still wasn't used to keeping them on. Without them, things far away always looked fuzzy, slightly bent. The path led to a wide open spot along the Chestnut River, which flowed quietly along the edge of the trail. It was empty now, unlike summer when the place would be packed with families. Now it was still, ice glimmering near the water, branches bare overhead. I walked slowly, taking pictures of icy twigs, frozen puddles, and rocks shaped like tiny creatures. Then something unusual caught my eye, a rusty railroad spike sticking up from the ground. It was weathered and had frost on it. I crouched down to get a close-up photo, lining it up in my camera's viewfinder. It was right then that I noticed something had changed. Everything around me went totally quiet. No birds, no breeze. Even the sound of the river faded like it had been turned off. It was the kind of silence that presses against your ears, deep and heavy and strange. I stood up slowly, suddenly feeling uneasy. My bright orange jacket stood out against the pale winter landscape. I felt like a target. A weird feeling crept up my back, like I wasn't alone, like someone was watching. I squinted across the river. Without my glasses, the trees past the first row were just fuzzy shapes against the sky. Then I heard footsteps, slow, careful, crunching through dry leaves on the other side of the water. My heart started to race. I stared hard into the blur of trees, trying to find the source of the sound. A shape came into view. It stepped out between two big trees and just stood there. It was upright, tall, and thin, but something about its shape felt off. Its body was too long, and the way it moved was too smooth. It didn't look like a person or an animal. It walked closer to the river, quiet and steady, stopping just at the edge. Couldn't breathe, couldn't move. All I could do was stare, frozen. Even without my glasses, I could tell something wasn't right. Its skin looked gray, like ash, and its arms and legs moved too easily, too strangely. My heart thudded in my ears. My body was screaming at me to run, but I couldn't. Only when it stepped forward again did something inside me break. I spun around, tripping over rocks and patches of ice, and ran harder than I ever had. I didn't look back, not even once. I just ran until the trees cleared and I saw the road. My mom had already opened the car door, her face full of worry. She grabbed my shoulder as I gasped for air. I couldn't talk right away. I was still shaking. Eventually, I told her what I'd seen, the silence, the strange shape, the way it made me feel. Her face changed. She said softly that she had felt something, too. A wave of anxiety the second I disappeared down the trail. We didn't hang around. We drove off right away, barely speaking as the woods faded in the rearview mirror. That day never left my mind. Even years later, I still think about what I saw on the other side of the Chestnut River and how close it had come. After we moved away from Blue Ridge, I found myself going over the memory again and again. I tried to believe it was just bad vision playing tricks or maybe the stress of that strange silence, but deep down, I knew better. Whatever was out there, it wasn't just my imagination. It was real. It stayed in my thoughts, keeping me up at night, staring at my ceiling. The next morning, I woke up tired and nervous. I sat with my mom at the kitchen table while she passed me a plate of pancakes. She looked like she hadn't rested either. "You felt something yesterday, didn't you?" I asked. She didn't look up right away. "I felt nervous," she admitted. "Right after you left, it was like the air turned heavy. I've never felt anything quite like that before." Hearing her say it gave me chills. "Do you think other people have felt it?" I asked. She looked at me with a strange expression. "Everyone around here has stories. I always ignored them. Maybe I shouldn't have." After breakfast, my fear turned into curiosity. I needed to know more. I spent the whole morning at the town library, digging through old newspaper clippings and scrolling through local forums on the dusty old desktop. I tapped away nervously until I found something. A strange post on a hiking message board from 2005. It said, "Has anyone seen the gray one near the river at Hollow Creek?" No replies, no comments, just that. Then it was deleted a few days later. Then I found something even older, an article from the Clearwood Gazette, printed in 1955. The title read, "Boy Scared by Pale Figure in Hollow Creek Area." The details were few, but the kid described something tall and quiet moving near the river. Officials had dismissed it as a made-up story. It faded into small-town legend. That afternoon, I met up with my friend Lucas. We sat on his old couch in his basement, and I told him everything about the silence, the feeling, and the figure by the river. Lucas listened carefully, brows drawn. "That sounds like the weird tales your grandpa used to tell," he said, trying to laugh, but I could hear the tightness in his voice. "Do you think it was one of those shapeshifters or something?" I asked. He frowned.
No.
"Those are myths from out west. They're human-like. Whatever you saw, it didn't sound like anything human or animal." I pulled a notebook from my bag and sketched out what I remembered. Long arms, hunched back, strange legs. I handed it to him. He stared at it for a long moment, then put it down slowly. "That's nothing I've ever heard of around here." We sat in silence, the uneasiness thick between us. Then Lucas said, "We should go back." I felt my stomach twist. "We'll go during the day," he added. "We'll be careful. I'll bring a trail cam. Maybe we'll catch something." Even though the thought scared me, I nodded. We planned to return in a few days once we were ready. But lying in bed that night, I wasn't sure it was the right thing to do. I pictured the river again, and the silence, and that gray shape. I had the horrible feeling that it had been seen by others, long before me, that maybe it had always been there. 3 days later, Lucas and I went back to Hollow Creek. It was even colder. The sky looked like steel, and the trees stood still. The air felt heavy as soon as we stepped onto the trail. "You okay?" Lucas asked softly. "Not really," I answered, but I smiled anyway. "Let's just do it." We walked slow. Our feet made soft crunches on the leaves and ice. The woods felt like they were watching us. When we reached the spot near the river, my chest got tight again. Lucas knelt by the water, looking at the ground. I stood beside him, trying not to keep checking the other side. After a minute, he called me over. "Check this out," he whispered. There in the mud was a print, long, thin, not wide enough for a person, and deep lines at the end like claws. "What made that?" I asked, barely whispering. "I don't know," he said, "but it's not any animal I've hunted, and it's not human either." I backed away, breathing fast. Lucas looked across the river and pointed to a tree. "I'll put the cam there," he said. "We'll check it in a day or two." I nodded, trying to stay calm. He climbed up and fixed the camera. His hands were shaking, but he didn't say anything. We both knew we needed to get out of there. As we turned to leave, the air shifted again. Heavy, still. My heart sped up. I knew we weren't alone. The footsteps returned, this time fast. Running, crashing through the brush on the other side. I turned sharp. The Olympic National Forest isn't exactly some unknown secret, but the part around the Elkhorn River reached through an almost undrivable stretch called Logging Route 39. Felt as secluded as you could get without falling off the face of the earth. It had taken Riley, Lena, and me months to work out a weekend away from Seattle's noise and crowds. This was supposed to be our escape. Just a few nights beneath tall fir trees, the three of us, a small trailer loaded with snacks and beer, and the soft, steady sound of the Elkhorn flowing nearby. I'd recently bought a second-hand teardrop trailer. It was light enough to haul anywhere, decent enough to make Riley stop complaining about tents, and sturdy enough for the rough dirt roads we always ended up choosing. Route 39 was barely passable. More like a strip of ruts, rocks, and water-filled pits than anything close to pavement. It shook us silly for nearly an hour through thick greenery and dark underbrush before we reached a wide patch of gravel beside a bend in the river. We got camp ready quickly. Lights strung, chairs unfolded. Riley made a joke about bears, but Lena waved it off, pointing at our sealed trailer. The day quietly slipped into night. Moist air rolled in off the river. The forest got completely dark except for the soft orange cone of light from our lamps. We told old stories, drank more than we probably should have, and finally crawled into the tiny trailer, letting the sound of the river lull us out cold. I woke up before the others, a little after sunrise. Stretching out stiff muscles, I stepped into a foggy morning. The mist hung low and slow over the water. Everything looked untouched, just like we'd left it, until I noticed something strange near the edge of the clearing. About 60 feet from the trailer stood something, tall, rough, and made completely from driftwood and old river junk. It was about 6 feet high and positioned squarely facing our trailer, like it had been put there to watch us. The longer I looked, the worse the feeling got. A pair of old elk antlers had been tied tightly to the top of it, both curving away from the river, aimed instead toward the deep forest behind us. "Lena," I called softly. She stirred. Then Riley woke up complaining about coffee. When they stepped outside and saw what I was looking at, their expressions matched mine. Blank confusion and creeping unease. "Did someone build that?" Riley asked, eyeing the weird sculpture as he crept closer, circling it slowly. "The way this is tied together, it's not random. Probably someone messing around," Lena said, trying to brush it off with a nervous laugh. "Could be other people camping nearby." "There weren't any other people," Riley reminded her. "No cars, no tracks, nothing." I suggested we set up a trail cam that night, thinking maybe catching someone in the act would ease the tension. Riley nodded slowly. Lena went back to boiling water, but all of us kept glancing at that strange figure like it might suddenly move or disappear. The rest of the day passed quietly. We wandered along the river, tried and failed to fish from a shallow pool upstream, and later made dinner. As the sun vanished and the forest thickened with shadow, we got the trail cam ready, placing it so it would catch anything near the edge of camp. When full darkness came, every little sound seemed louder, each crack of a branch, every shift in the underbrush. I found myself listening hard, trying to spot anything unusual beyond the river's quiet song. Eventually, tiredness won out. Later that night, I felt Lena shaking my shoulder. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. My heart picked up instantly. "What?" "Something breaking branches. Near the trees," she breathed. We listened for a while but heard nothing except the usual quiet hum of water. We fell back asleep, though uneasily. When daylight came, we stepped out of the trailer cautiously. Lena gasped. Her hand flew to cover her mouth. Another statue was standing in the clearing, closer this time. It looked a lot like the first one, but this one had a salmon skull tied near what could be considered its face. Green, wet moss draped from it like a veil. "Check the footage," Riley said quietly. I grabbed the trail cam, fumbling nervously as we all leaned over to watch the playback. The camera showed our empty camp. Then suddenly, within a 10-second span, the figure appeared. Just like that. One frame, it wasn't there. Next frame, fully built. No sign of someone approaching. No movement. Nothing. We stood frozen. Riley's eyes were darting back and forth. Lena stared at the statue, like if she looked long enough, it might give us an answer. "What is this?" I whispered. Nobody said anything. The trees seemed closer somehow, more alive, like the forest had leaned in. There was no doubt. Something out there didn't want us here. The morning dragged. None of us spoke much. Breakfast was barely eaten. Riley paced, talking about heading home early. Lena packed and repacked things like she wasn't sure whether to stay or run. I kept trying to explain the footage to myself. Maybe the camera glitched. Maybe it recorded out of sync. But I didn't believe myself. "We should go," Riley finally said. His voice cracked. Lena folded her arms. "And just leave? Not even try to find out who's doing this?" "I don't care anymore," Riley snapped. "Whatever did that," he pointed toward the moss-draped sculpture, "wants us gone." I rubbed my face, exhausted. One more night. We reposition the camera. Better angle. If nothing happens, we leave at dawn. We all agreed barely. None of us really believed things would calm down. That afternoon, we set up extra cameras and Riley pulled out solar-powered motion lights he'd brought just in case. As night came again, the tension deepened. The dark felt heavier than the night before. We shut ourselves into the trailer early. The little space didn't feel safe anymore. It felt like a tin box waiting to be cracked open. Sleep wouldn't come. I lay still, listening. Every creak outside, every snap in the brush, shot my pulse up. Lena tossed beside me. Riley didn't move at all. At around 2:30 a.m., a burst of static broke the silence. A flash of light lit up the inside of the trailer. Lena sat up, grabbing my arm. "What was that?" I was already moving. "We need to check the cams." We stepped outside, flashlights shaking in our hands. The cold was sharper now, the air heavy with moisture. All the cameras were dark, dead. "They were charged yesterday," Riley whispered, checking one and showing the empty battery case. Something caught my eye near the trailer's rear. The hatch, locked every night, was now wide open. "Did anyone leave that unlocked?" I asked, already sure we hadn't. "I double-checked," Lena said quickly. We moved toward it carefully. Then we saw it. All of our food, every single can, package, and wrapper, had been laid out in a perfect spiral pattern, starting at the trailer and winding out into the trees. So clean, so exact, like someone had taken hours to set it up. "No animal did this," Lena said, voice cracking. We followed the spiral with our lights. It led into the forest, vanishing between the trees. "We need to follow it," Riley said, barely loud enough to hear. None of us wanted to, but we did. The woods closed around us fast. Our flashlights struggled to break through the dark. The spiral led us to a clearing surrounded by towering firs. A ring of more sculptures stood there, each made from bones, sticks, feathers, moss. They all faced inward. At the center sat one of our sleeping bags rolled up neatly, damp with river water. "That was in the trailer," Lena whispered. Riley backed away quickly, breathing hard. "We have to leave. Now." We didn't argue. We hurried back to camp, locked ourselves inside, and pushed gear against the doors. No one talked. No one slept. We sat quietly, waiting. At sunrise, we started packing without saying much. Riley's hands shook. Lena kept avoiding our eyes. I checked everything, tires, trailer hitch, chains, trying to stay busy. We piled into the SUV and took off. Barely 5 minutes down the road, I hit the brakes hard. "What the hell?" Lena started, then stopped when she saw it. A huge barricade made of driftwood blocked the road. Logs twisted together tightly, ends jammed into the earth. It was massive. "That wasn't here yesterday," Riley said in disbelief. We got out. The air was heavy and cold. "Let's try the winch," Riley offered. We hooked it up. The cable groaned, strained, then snapped. "It's not working," Lena said softly. Her eyes were fixed on something deeper in the woods. Another figure, hiding between trees, watching. "Cam," Lena whispered. "We have to go back." We had no choice. We returned to our campsite. Back inside the trailer, we locked everything again. I told them we'd take turns keeping watch. Nobody objected. Later that night, we started feeling a strange vibration under the floor. Faint but real.